Hello everyone, welcome back to the Scrap Zone. I'm Julie. In today's video, I'm going to share with you my reimagined version of the In Full Bloom workshop kit. It is a beautiful paper pack and I hope you like the small changes I've done with these layouts. So we're going to start with layout number 1, and as I mentioned, we are using the In Full Bloom workshop kit, and I've done a few minor changes like this one right here. I absolutely wanted to keep some of this gorgeous paper, so I've cut it out and I just used a white daisy cardstock base. I think I can do something else with those two pieces. The featured technique in this workshop is using texture paste, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And I like all of the pretty elements on all of the pages. They've got really nice details. So let's move on to the texture paste part of this video. Now, I had a big problem here. My texture paste was completely dried. As you can see, this is not going to work out. So I decided I don't have anything else. I'm going to try and bring it back to life. I added quite a bit of water in here. And with lots of persevering and trying to mix this up, I was able to bring it back to life. So you can see here that it's kind of moving. It's a little lumpy bumpy, but I don't have anything else, so I'm going to have to make this work, right? So we are going to add the texture paste to the color on the mat right here. And you can see that it's mixing kind of okay. So you're probably not going to have this issue, but I thought I'd show you anyways, because we often just throw things out maybe, and I thought I could, try and make it work because I didn't really have another jar in the scrapbooking room that day. So let's do the texture paste on these pages right here, and my pages are not even assembled at this point. So I did use Post-it note just to kind of mark off. There's several little lines, dots on this stencil, so I kind of masked off the top ones, and I'm just going back and forth with the texture paste, and I'm just dragging it on those lines. Now, I really thought that it was going to dry much lighter than it did, but I'm okay with it, and you'll see later on in the video that I've got kind of 3 colors going on with the texture paste. So I'm going to go ahead and pop it right here at the top. And this doesn't have to be perfect. So when you do mixed media, the whole idea is that it's kind of grungy looking and it's not perfect. So don't stress out too much about it. And you'll see at the end it looks really, really nice. So I've got my little lines here. I'm going to let it dry. So of course, when they tell you to put this workshop together, they do say do all 3 layouts at one time and then go have a coffee, come back and start assembling. Well, I did one at a time. I'm going to clean off my hands here. It's always good to have a rag, something wet, just to kind of pick up the mess. Yes, you're going to get a little messy when you do this layout, but you know what? It's a lot of fun. So you can see here at the top that I don't have a lot of texture paste left. I usually put way too much. So this time here I was very conservative, and I really had to stretch it out. So you don't need a whole lot, but sometimes it's nice to have extra, but in my case here I did not. So again, I'm going to wipe off my fingers, my tools, and we're just going to let this dry and start the assembly of layout number 1. And it wipes off really, really nicely on this all-purpose mat. I'm just going to run the stencil part in warm water, and we're going to keep it for layout number 2. Alright, so I've done pretty much all of the assembly at this point. Kind of spared you that. And I added quite a bit of inking, only because those stripes were so bright that I wanted to balance out the colors. I also use black oxide ink and did a little bit of distressing with water, and I really like the way that that looked as well. So you've got a lot of neat details on this layout. You have the colored texture paste right here at the bottom. You've got this really pretty flower that's been popped with 3D foam tape. And when you look at this layout right here, you really can't tell that my texture paste was hard as a rock when I started. So let's move along to layout number 2. And for this one right here, I actually flipped the pattern paper. I guess I'm more partial to a teal as opposed to that green, although it's gorgeous. I decided to use the back side. We're going to bring back that little stencil and we are going to add that detail with texture paste. Now, had I mixed it all for all 3 layouts, I would have had that really dark color and then it wouldn't have shown up on the Lagoon cardstock that we're playing with right here. So again, you can tell that my texture paste is not really what it should be, but you know what? It still worked out fine at the end. And for this one right here, I'm just going to keep it white. I thought that it would show up nicely against the Lagoon cardstock, so I'm just kind of mixing it up here only because it's still got a little bit of lumps and bumps, but you know what? It still worked out pretty good. So let's add those little dots. So those go at the end of both of these strips, so at the top and at the bottom. And when you add all of the other elements on your page, it looks really nice. So it's just one more detail on each of the layouts that you'll be creating using texture paste, and it kind of gives you a little preview of maybe you've never tried texture paste and this is just kind of putting your toe in the water to see if you want to try it. And I thought that it was a really good technique to feature for these layouts right here. So you see it, you have it at the bottom and at the top. I'm going to bring it up here so you can take a peek. And the white looks really nice. I'm just going to wipe that down. We're going to clean up our little mess and we are going to look at how this layout turned out. So again, I flipped that pattern paper and I've got my texture paste here that is nice and dry, and I like the fact that it's white. It shows up really nicely. And we're going to add our pieces at the bottom. I did want to use the branding strip at the bottom, but because I flipped my pattern paper, I just added a little bit of cardstock just to back it. That way it kind of pops on the page and you can see it a little bit better. This little circle here, I added a little bit of ink distressing to the one side, again, just to make it stand out from the busy background paper. It is busy, but I still like it quite a bit. My little butterfly here, same thing. I added a little bit of ink just to make it stand out. And that black overlay is fantastic. It is so pretty. So we're going to go ahead here and we're going to follow the instructions in the assembly guide, and we're going to rip those 2 pieces. Just before we do that, I just want to show you how I place all of my elements here on a piece of cardstock. It doesn't matter what color it is, but that way you can kind of see all of your pieces and it's much easier to work with. And I also did bring black soot to add on the edges of this and the previous layout. So you've seen me do this before, but I really do find that using just a water brush and drawing a line against your cardstock gives you much more control when you are ripping your paper. So for those of you out there who are a little bit of a control freak, I might be one too, this is much easier. I just find that it just follows the water line and you just rip towards you and you get a perfect rip pretty much every time. So I'm just going to curl it up while it's still wet, and then I'm going to allow it to dry and I'm going to ink distress this piece right here where it's ripped and all around. So I do like to have a little bit more control. Maybe you do too, who knows. So this is how this layout turned out, and I'm really, really happy with it. You've got a little bit of everything in here, and I did move some of those flowers around. There was a lot of flowers on this page, even for me. I love flowers, but I found that there was a little bit too many flowers, so I kind of moved them from layout 1 and layout 3, and you'll see that in the next layout. That butterfly is really gorgeous. All right, so layout number 3. We're going to do, again, a little bit of distressing, but before that, I want to show you this. So this is the die cut, and then those are the black elements that come in the kit. Isn't that gorgeous? Like, it's just the details in here are, they knocked it out of the park. I love everything about this workshop. So we're going to, again, bring in that little stencil, and we're going to do a little bit of ink, not ink distressing, sorry, but texture paste. And now I know that I want just a little bit of color, so I'm barely touching the mat, and I'm going to mix in my texture paste, and you'll see that there's quite a difference in color. So if you don't like the first one I did, which had quite a bit of ink in there, and the texture paste was really, really bright, if you add just a tiny little bit, you can still color it. And this one here actually looks the same color as this piece of pattern paper right here. So I've gone ahead and I've masked both sides of this stencil just so that I don't get texture paste everywhere, and I found that that was the easiest way for me to put this together. So I'm going to add those on both the left side and the right side, and we're just going to go ahead and complete the texture paste portion of this layout. But you can see that by mixing a lot of ink or not too much ink, you get a different result every time. I really like the color on this one. It's nice and it's soft. And this is what it looks like on the other page. All right, so we're going to clean up our little mess, and we're going to move right along to layout number 3. I've gone ahead and I've done the dry fitting. Now I'm not going to use black on this one. I did bring back the mink ink only because I wanted to keep this one really soft. And I did move some of the die cuts and those black leaves. I moved them from the original layouts that they were meant to go on, and that's totally okay. You can see here that you've got these flowers that were meant for layout number 2 or number 1. At this point, I really don't know, but I really like the way that it turned out. So this here, I've just left it open so that I can slide my photo in here. Same with the little titles here from the stickers. So those are the minor changes that I've done to this workshop. I hope you like it. I wanted to take a moment right here and let you know that the Creative Design Team exclusive classes are now open for registration. You can register for monthly subscription from today until the 31st of March. I think you're going to enjoy what we have to offer. Collectively, we have a diverse style and many, many projects and tons of experience to share with you all. As always, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and if you're not a subscriber, I would love to have you join. Here are a couple of other videos I think you might just like. Have yourself a fantastic day.